Ladies and gentlemen, On the Sofa with Esther has a special 3-part series in the run-up to Valentine's Day, in conversation with Cindy Jarrett, about conscious dating in an unconscious world. And on Monday the 13th of February, we are going to have a special interactive live session. Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to On the Sofa with Esther. Right, we will be celebrating International Women's Month this month, March, and I will be talking to a series of women who have and are doing some incredibly powerful work around transformation and healing. So I'd like you to welcome with me onto my platform the wonderful Cindy Jarrett.
Thank you, Esther. Love being here. Love being with you.
Thank you. Well, Cindy, first and foremost, I usually like to ask my guests, who is Cindy in a nutshell, in a peanut shell, or a crab shell? Who is Cindy Jarrett?
Cindy Jarrett. She's my best friend. I classify myself as a mystic versus a senior. I like mystic. And I'm a teacher and a shamanic practitioner and an artist, an author, writer, poet. And basically for our purpose here today, I am a teacher of conscious dating. And I've created a book of the work that I teach people privately. The whole training is in my book of Path of the Golden Heart, Conscious Dating in an Unconscious World.
Yep, I've got that book.
So, and I know you've read it and have an understanding of it. So I'm curious about your questions also. But so that's who I am in practice professionally. I have a private business where I work with people one-on-one or couples 2-on-1. And basically I teach people how to be emotionally mature spiritual adults.
Excellent.
And so, of course, dating is the beginning of all beloved relationships. You come together and you're dating. And then there's the getting to know process, and there's different stages and phases and such. And so I like bringing people to this new practice in dating, because dating tends to be a painful experience for a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be. It's just,
that's interesting. That's interesting. But we're gonna, for the purpose of this series, because we're gonna be doing a 4-part series, and the theme is really around conscious dating. So therefore, Cindy, how did you sort of get into this practice of conscious dating, and then wanting to research and then share and then work with people around this particular subject?
Yeah. It started with the last relationship I had before I met my beloved, my husband, my soulmate.
How long have you been married?
We figured out we're in our 39th year. Come November. Yeah.
Excellent.
And so, yeah, we met in the end of 85 and got together in 86 and started our official dating. So we sort of have different anniversaries. But before that, I was in a 4-year relationship with someone I thought I might marry, and I realized I couldn't marry this person. And so I was single again, and I was just at a place. I had my career, I had my animals, I had my interests and such, and I was really ready for a partner. And so I was out running one day after work, and I got the download that, well, he's here. I'm 34, he's walking the planet. I could tap into his soul. And it's exactly what I did. I got home and I did a meditation, and I also worked with the divination system of the tarot system. And I just did that every day after work. I just meditated and I connected, and I started getting very clear downloads about who this person was. And so after a while, I tracked all my notes, and it was very consistent. And then it was just, well, when am I going to meet this person? And then I got very clear messaging on how and where that was going to happen. And it was a very soul to soul connection. And so sure enough, I did a workshop that I was guided to do, and I met my husband in that environment. And so we went on to do our relationship, business of getting to know each other and vetting each other. And I knew he was my soulmate, but I still needed to know a few things. One in particular is that we could work out issues together. I really needed to have that, because in the last relationship I was in for 4 years, I wasn't able to really work things out with them. And so that was really a key thing, that because where we were together and aligned, that's easy. It's like that, that's the workability is always great, and you want that. But it's where you have your troubles or your issues or your diversity, basically, where you do and think life differently. And I needed to know that we could work things out. And we started out right away with having a long distance blended family, step family configuration, because Thomas had a daughter with a previous spouse. And so we had those challenges straight out. And then and just, where we were developmentally. I had done a lot of family of origin therapy work prior to meeting him, and he hadn't done any. And so that was a diversity right there. And he had some woundings from his past. And I'll touch on that and the importance of doing that work.
Okay, but 1 minute, Cindy. So, you said you had done, so did you personally do the work on yourself around the family stuff, or were you teaching that? Sorry, I just needed clarity around that.
I personally did that when I graduated. Yeah, when I graduated from college, in college I knew I needed help emotionally.
Okay.
But I just couldn't focus on that with the extensive studies I was in, being a health professional. And so I made a pact with myself to get a therapist and to do my family healing work. And so 2 weeks after graduating, I got my first therapist, and she was brilliant. And I worked with her for a full year. And then I met my spiritual teacher in that time frame as well. And I got my first horse as well. So I got my first horse. So I had these 3 teachers. I had a therapist, I had my spiritual teacher, and I had my horse. Yeah. And so I was in good care. And then I met the man that I lived 4 years with that didn't work out, but I learned some good things. And I call it my floor relationship, and everybody kind of has a floor relationship, oftentimes a teaching relationship, before they meet their beloved. Okay. And I'm sure some of the listeners are going, I've been on the floor forever, so, and I feel your pain. So been there. And that's part of why I, said, hey, he's here. I can connect with him. Let me connect with him. And then once that happened and I connected with Thomas, and, we launched our journey of life together, I still wanted to live with him before I married him and make sure that we were truly compatible in all the important areas. And then I went deep in a meditation process, and I realized I wanted to teach people how to do this. So I created my conscious dating training for individuals. And I've supported hundreds and hundreds of people meeting their soulmate and coming together. And so those individual projects that I did and still do in my consulting, those people said, you got to, I wish I knew you 20 years ago, and, and you got to get this out to more people, and there's all that. And so then I went, okay, so then I started doing in-house workshops, and I did that for a few years. And then my students said, you got to get this out. You got to get this out to people. So then I wrote the book. And excellent. So now I'm, doing this interview and other interviews and podcasts and such. And so that, people can have access, because conscious dating is a different animal. And I want to say the definition that I work with and how I work with the definition. And so I use, and there's many definitions that could be used, but this is the one I like using and working with. And it's conscious dating is knowing what you want and need for partnership and standing for having those wants and needs met, and
Wow, that's powerful.
being committed to responsible, non-harming, honest ways of relating throughout the process of getting to know a potential partner and forever. So the practices of being responsible, non-harming, and honest, and that's with self and with potential partners. So telling the truth, if you want an open relationship, if you want just to date and have a BFF, friends with benefits, or if you really, really want to get married, have kids, or you want to just have a partner, you want to live together, you know, telling your truth of what it is you want and need. So I work with people on this definition, and I say, where in this definition do you have your weaknesses? So is it in the area of you really don't know what you want and need? And because that starts all creation processes, is knowing what you want and need. If you're building a house, you have to, you know, if you go to an architect, they go, well, what are you looking for? And I'm like, I don't know. And
but you know, sometimes, Cindy, sometimes people don't know because of their perception, because of their experiences, and also what they've seen around them. So how would you guide, how do you, for example, get someone to that point who've been through lots of those flawed type of experiences and relationships that you've mentioned? What's the process that you would take someone through for them to actually have that self-love of self, to actually say, actually, this is what I want, rather than this is what I want based on where they've come from? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm with you. I'm tracking. And, just for the listeners' point, I just want to say that Esther is one of the most amazing women on the planet, and I love her to bits.
Bless you. So, she's a sister from another mother.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, I had to sneak that in.
Thank you.
So there's a couple things. So how I begin the process is with this definition. So I first ask, do you not have the clarity of what you want and need? Or do you know what you want and need and you haven't stood for it? And, or have you been irresponsible, or have you been harming yourself in some way by not being honest? Are you honest or dishonest in terms of revealing or being transparent, or just being upfront about what it is you want and need? Because I encourage people in the conscious dating process to vet their potential partners. And one of the pieces that has to be in place is you just being completely honest about what you're seeking, and no games, no BS around that. Just, this is me. This is what I want. Is that alignment with you? No. Okay. Well, nice meeting you, you know, good luck. And you go on your merry way to find people that align. But how so people usually come back with, no, I don't have that clarity. I haven't really gotten that clarity. And I am not a supporter of practice dating. I don't like the speed dating thinking. I don't like practice dating concept of, well, I'll figure it out with you. You know, I'll figure out who I am and what I want and need on your heart. And I don't really like that. So how does one get that clarity? So I like to work with people's history. So I have and again, all these pieces I mentioned are in the book, all the training pieces, all the exercises, and it's a workbook. You can take yourself through the process. Yeah. So the first process I do is the trait process on past partners. What are your positive and negative traits on yourself and two major relationships, so that people see their patterns of who they draw to them that isn't working. And it's usually very crystal clear. And they'll see that. And a lot of times also it will reveal some of the patterns they have with either one or both of their parents, their unfinished business with their parents, or their primary caretakers. And so they'll see, like, I have unfinished business with mom and dad or caretakers, and I'm recreating it in my romantic relationships.
Okay.
There's a mirroring process that happens with that. The other thing is if someone is just fresh out of a relationship and they've been referred to me, or they're still kind of engaging in a relationship and they want to figure out whether they really should stay in, so they want that clarity. Then I have another process called completing past relationship.
What is that called? Sorry, what is it called?
Completing past relationship. And it's a series of questions that people walk themselves through of what's working, what's not working, what am I learning, what is my responsibility in the issues that I'm facing. And it helps people get very clear about whether they should really stay in that. And also part of my job in teaching this is to bring people to understand what is healthy, as opposed to what is not working or what is toxic or detrimental, unsuccessful qualities of a relationship. It's as much important to know what works as also to understand what doesn't. So I have a handout of red flag behaviors. And so people learn, if I, out of the 50 or more traits of red flags, and you're in a current partnership or your most recent relationship, and you go through that list and go, Harry had, 50% of these red flags. Well, now you know why that relationship couldn't sustain. Now you know why you ended it, or you need to end it, because it shows people how you're drawing to you someone who isn't mature enough, isn't ready to handle the weight and accountability of loving someone else. There's a lot of responsibility when you say, I want a beloved. And there's information and training around all that as well. But, so I start with this definition, and then some people may say, well, I know what I want and need, but I'm not standing for it. I always waver. I always go for the warm body. I always have sex on the first date, and I get all hooked in, and I know they're wrong for me, but then I'm hooked in and hoping they'll change. There's lots of reasons why people stop standing for their wants and needs and requirements.
But it's part of that. What we're going to do, ladies and gents, after the break, the next question following on from this is part of that fear, the fear for standing for what you want in case you lose what you have, but what you have is not really what you want. So ladies and gents, after the break, I will be coming back, and I'm talking to Cindy Jarrett, who is talking about conscious dating in an unconscious world. Okay, so book your exclusive experience today with Tony Jazz, bespoke lifestyle manager to the rich and famous, professional butler and fine dining restaurant reviewer, the butlers of Mayfair Bespoke Events. Your wish is our command. Was to Cindy about fear. Lots of people, why do they not stand for what they want? Is a lot of that because they're from a place of fear, Cindy?
Well, yeah, there's a couple answers for that. First and foremost, we are very intricate human beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and there's a lot of intricacies and layers to who we are. We're like diamonds. We have multiple facets to us. And it's why relationships are complicated and intricate. Now, some of the solutions are simple, but because of our complications and intricacies, it can make for some of the pain we have in relationship. And one of the pains does come from not standing for what you want and need. So that comes from a base, a strong base of self-love. And it comes from also having it modeled. And conscious dating is not necessarily the primary modeling out there in the dating world. So it hasn't been modeled enough. And it's why I'm wanting to get this out to more people on a global scale instead of in a private office setting that I've done for 34 years now.
And we are going to be talking about self-love in series 3, ladies and gents. We're going to be doing a deep dive about self-love. So sorry, apologies. That's
all right. And the other couple of things that stand in the way is, your self-esteem, also your beliefs, which we'll talk about in the next segment. If you don't believe it's possible, you won't be able to stand for what you want and need. If you don't believe that the person you're dating is capable of loving you or you're capable of loving them. So beliefs are very important, and we'll talk in depth about that. They're so important. There's lots of factors there, but modeling is also a real key piece, because if we haven't witnessed something, we don't have that learning through organic learning, through the witnessing and experiencing. And if it's not embodied, it's not ours to own or benefit from. We need to have our toolkit embodied in our system so that we have it to use. And that's why I like teaching this, because it is a staged learning process. You take yourself through, I guide people through either in the book or on one-on-one sessions, how to really work the getting ready. And that to think about this in conscious dating, you can do regular dating, meet someone, it works, it doesn't work, pain, no pain, regular dating. But conscious dating has different demands. And it is that you come into it, you start your dating process from the fact that you know what you want and need, and you're holding for that occurring. And then you've trained yourself or been trained in standing, backing it up with the being responsible, being honest all the way through. And that's honesty about your family relationships, your relationship history, your sexual history, your STD history, your safe sex history, your wants, needs, preferences, your gotta haves, meaning, your deal breakers, being honest about that and not fudging on that at all. And so there's a lot of, again, intricacies to how your honesty is. And you don't necessarily divulge everything on a first date. I did do that with Thomas, and I don't necessarily recommend that. I recommend you first find out, do you really like the person? Do you feel you have some basic things in common? In the book, there's a whole dating questionnaire that you can, begin to get to know somebody with. But standing for comes from a core connectivity to, I deserve this. I deserve love. I am lovable.
But that's what you coach people. That's what you coach people into those places, because I would assume a lot of people aren't standing from those places, and so the work you do supports them to understand. And there was one question before we wind down with this section, Cindy. You talked about modeling. We often model what we see, and is that an unconscious thing as well? Because sometimes you don't realize that you are modeling what you've seen because it's an unconscious thing, isn't it? Because that was something that I wanted to ask you, because I know for me in my relationships, I've always gone after Mr. Potential. Mr. Potential. So I had to do that weeding out. It's almost like, damn, it's nice initially. And when we had the conversation, my conversation was usually, we need to work at this together. You work on your thing, I work on my thing as well, but then we work together. And initially it's yes, and then you get halfway through, and for whatever reason they just don't follow it through. And so
you're saying a lot here. I want to unpack that, because this is really, really important what you're saying.
Okay, well, we're going to extend this session, ladies and gents. I'm putting my life on the line. You're going to find out a bit more about me. I just want to just say also that I'm no longer in that place with the Mr. Potential thing, because it's almost like I had to make that decree with myself no more, but I had to do some work around it. So over to you, Cindy, and we've got let's do another 10-15 minutes on this, because this is warming up rather nice.
Yeah. So my first therapist told me never fall in love with potential, because potential is not happening. You want to be with the happenings. You want to be with someone who is, pretty much engaged, on the path. And everybody is going to come with, some contractive emotions, some unfinished business, some wounding. Everybody will have that. Everybody will have some issues. And on some level, you can pick all the things that are positive and, expansive that you want to experience, which is great. And sometimes it's also to really look and see, well, what are the more, contractive emotions and habits, patterns, and behaviors that I can live with? Like Thomas sometimes exhibits some stubbornness. He'll say no before he says yes sometimes. And I can live with that, because I know how to pierce his no. And I know how to, he's well trained by now, by the way. And so anyway, potential can be there, but it has to be engaged with. It has to be, if you have wounding, if you have trauma and you've done no healing about it, and you're in your 30s and 40s or 50s, you're going to inherit your partner's issues. Just think about that. They inherit yours and you inherit theirs. And if they're not doing anything about it, it's going to show up in the face of love. And so you want to hopefully do your own work prior, be as sort of squeaky clean in your own heart, instead of carrying a lot of unfinished business baggage, like, well, I'm going to deal with this with you, and the unsuspecting. And sometimes it's called paying, making someone pay the debts of what someone else didn't provide.
Yes.
Hands on hips and like, well, you better give me. And it's like, well, wait a minute, no, get clean, do your healing work, get as clear, open, full, and strong-hearted on your own up front. And then that allows you to stand better for what you want and need. And that's the thing about potential. You vet the person, you find out where are they. Because people will say, oh, I want an honest relationship, or I want all these other goody things. But back here is where their ability to deliver on this.
There we go. And that's the key. I think you've just said something key, the ability. Because sometimes you don't know until you get into the relationship, actually. Because a lot of people speak. And, oftentimes when you are sort of on the dating on that road, you're both going into something with an open heart, with the intention of making it work, with the intention, even though what I'm hearing from you is about also having those conversations, because that intention may be there, but it's also about having those conversations. And sometimes having those conversations, being able to articulate with someone that you're getting to know, can be a little difficult, and especially if your communication skills, where your communication skills sit, and understanding love language and all those variables. And so I guess then it's really important that somebody like you does the work you do, because you shine a light on things that, having conversations about, would you like to be in a relationship with me? People are like, let's just get on with it. Yeah, but you're talking about creating a union where, once it strips away all the stuff, everybody can have that wonderful relationship. But a lot of people don't believe they can, because, out there in the world, there's a different narrative about relationships. Yeah. And you're bringing something that's honest and honoring and pure and true back into the realm, which is, people might think, yeah, right, does that really happen? It's about fairy tales, but it's not about fairy tales, it's about doing the work.
Yeah. Well, everybody I've ever worked with in these 34 years has always said, where were you 20 years ago? I needed you, 30 years ago. And I wish I had, you with my first husband because I really loved him, or wife, I really loved her. And, I sometimes I still regret that I lost that relationship just because I was immature or I acted out and, that's the thing is, that's why at the core of what I teach is emotional maturity, because that, my friends, is what's missing in the world. You give me any problem that we're facing right now, and it is all based in emotional immaturity. And we have four major or components to who we are, what makes up the human blueprint. We have the spirit, we have the physical, we have the mental, and we have the emotional. And if you do a pie chart of, are they all quarters, in terms of education, time, development, and money that's invested culturally, especially here in America, and it is globally, they're not equally divided. So people aren't, well developed in all their quadrants. We value mental education, PhDs, plaques on the wall. We value, gold medals and stuff, all the athletics, prowess and stuff in the physical universe. And then there's the religious / spiritual that is very much intertwined. But the slice of the emotional pie piece is always the smallest. And I always, I like this, what one client one time did. I'll give you a little graphic. So she kind of did this. She said, there's the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and then there's this big void of her, and just as a joke. But there's a lot of truth to that. Sometimes all areas are not quite very developed, and there's this big void. But for sure, the majority of the planet isn't conscious. The majority. That's why we have our political theater blowing up on us, is because the majority of people walking the planet are not conscious. They are unconscious. They don't know that they are creators and that they can create their reality, that they can change their environments. And so, emotional education, healing, and development, so that you get the discipline from it and you get the freedom on the other side of having emotional discipline.
There we go. There we go. Freedom on the other side.
If you don't have that, you got to do your work up front before you have the, demands of a love relationship. And that's why I love it when I get people that are single and they have either ended or they are a good distance away from a former major relationship. And they're kind of, they're clay that I can mold. But there's questionnaires, there's processes, there's meditations, there's different things one can do to bring yourself to emotional maturation. And it doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to take 12 years of the psychoanalysis and such laid out on a couch. It can, most people, when they work with me individually, work within 9 to 16, 18 months. That's the time frame. People come out of the training fully trained, usually dating proper, viable candidates. And I use that word viable candidate, not just a warm body, but someone that really is lining up because you got clear up front and they're engaged with you. And I like to encourage people to say, hey, I've learned, I'm reading this book, or I've learned about conscious dating. I do this process. Are you willing to do that with me? And some people are like, boy, what a, breath of fresh air. No one's ever offered that to me. I love that. Tell me more.
Because it's different, like you said, it's different. So what we're going to do now in the next segment, we are going to talk about beliefs. And then after that we're going to talk about self-love. And then also in series 4, we're going to talk about practices of vetting a potential partner. So that's where we can sort of expand more into what you've just spoken about. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been speaking to Cindy Jarrett. We are talking about conscious dating. And over the next few weeks, you are going to get this wonderful, I would say, bouquet of information that's going to support you in moving forward with your life, and not just with your life, because it's not just about the relationships, it's about you. It's about you and how you can move into the next level and next stage authentically with yourself so that you can be that to someone else. So looking forward to speaking to Cindy next time about the leaves. Thank you very much, Cindy. And before we go, can you just give us details of how someone can connect with you if they want to find out more about what you do and the work you do?
Yeah, I am on Facebook under Cindy Jarrett, and I have a wolfy head as my core picture, a beautiful wolf. And my website is designingaccess.biz, designingaccess.biz. And so I get emails there, and
okay, brilliant. Designingaccess.biz, ladies and gents. Okay, see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.